This podcast was recorded on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Ottawandaron, and Wendat peoples. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties.
From easy setup to around-the-clock support, Start.ca is London's friendly internet company. They're committed to providing a better internet and phone experience. How? Friendly local support, exceptional service, and unlimited internet. Isn't it time you loved your internet provider? Visit Start.ca online or call 866-434-5888 to get started.
Hey, Shobita.
Hey, Adam.
You know, I recently had an opportunity to observe a robotic, minimally invasive, radical prostatectomy.
A prostatectomy?
Yeah, it was a circumstance where part of a prostate had become cancerous and they had to remove it, and they got there just in time.
Why just in time?
Well, by the time they pulled it out, it was so radical, it was looking up alt-right sites on the internet.
I don't know what to say to that.
I'm Adam Kaplan.
And I'm Shobita Sharma. This is our second of 2 episodes about medtech innovation, and we're going to hear from an endocrinologist about how rebuilding a century-old hospital from the ground up has led to new discoveries and treatments in patient care.
We're also going to hear from 3 researchers at Western University, all Canada Research Chairs, about a $66 million study that involves scientists, doctors, musicians, artists, and business people looking into the most mysterious and important organ we have, and I'll bet it's not what you think.
And we're going to talk to a surgeon at London Health Sciences Centre who's blending virtual reality with real-world robots to make surgery faster, safer, and more accessible.
I am so excited for this story.
Adam, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
African or European?
European.
Let me find out. Hey Siri, what's the airspeed velocity of an unladen European swallow?
About 25 miles per hour for a European swallow. You have to know these things when you're a virtual assistant. You know, the last person that asked me that ended up in a crevasse.
Thank you, Siri. Now, Adam, let's say it was 17 years ago, so 1990, the year before the first World Wide Web servers were switched on. And I asked you the same question. How would you find the answer?
Actually, I honestly don't even know that I could have found an answer, and certainly not right in the middle of a conversation.
And when you think about the technology that lets you get that answer instantly just now, so the smartphone that connected wirelessly to the internet, and the speech recognition that processed your voice and then spoke back to you, it's clear how far we've come in just 17 years.
Is this the story about the robotic surgery?
No, Adam, it's not. In the last episode, we talked about how translational research changes the way clinicians and researchers approach care and treatment. And this week, we're going to have a look at how technology is fundamentally changing the way medicine is practiced. And there's a big change here in London that's happened over the past 17 years.
London underwent some restructuring about 17 years ago, and some services are no longer offered at St. Joseph's Healthcare. Some of the acute care services, delivering babies, that has moved to different locations, and St. Joe's has taken on a mission of looking after patients who have chronic diseases.
That's Dr. Irene Hramiak. She's a professor of medicine at Western University, chair of Western's Division of Endocrinology and Metabolism, and site chief of medicine at the Centre for Diabetes, Endocrinology and Metabolism at St. Joseph's Healthcare London, a sprawling set of facilities that spans the city and, along with London Health Sciences Centre, or LHSC, provides healthcare services to nearly 2 million people across southwestern Ontario.
Some interesting notes about St. Joseph's Hospital, which is part of St. Joseph's Healthcare London. When Dr. Hramiak is talking about delivering babies, you can count Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams.
And the J. Beebs.
And the J. Beebs among those born in its walls. But nearly 20 years ago, when healthcare restructuring began in the city, London's 2 hospitals took a long, hard look at what services they were each offering and what made sense where. When the dust settled, St. Joseph's Hospital had been completely redesigned structurally and in the services offered to focus on the areas they could make the most impact as an institution committed to a mission of care, teaching, and research.
So St. Joseph's was a patchwork of many different aging buildings kind of joined together with hallways. And in the restructuring, some of those older parts have been replaced or refurbished. And so the physical part is quite different. Once you come inside, you'll notice as well that some of those wards have been turned into clinics or ambulatory functioning rooms rather than having inpatient beds.
As Dr. Hramiak points out, changing the nature of the care St. Joseph's provides also means they had to really understand who they were providing care for, and that's changing too.
Over the last decade or so, the government and the healthcare services providers have noticed that as we become an aging population of boomers with chronic diseases, living longer, living better, we hope, that we consume a lot of the healthcare dollars. So it's estimated that 1 in 5 people in Ontario are living with a chronic disease, and that they consume 87% of the disability dollars in the province, and as well consume 67% of the resources for managing healthcare in our province.
So St. Joseph's Hospital has become what it calls a hospital without beds. Although they do have just under 30 beds for some procedures like minimally invasive robotic surgery that may require overnight stays.
Medicine has evolved over the last 20 years, so that many things that you used to be admitted for now we do as an ambulatory patient. And so it is the direction that medicine is taking, is to be more and more ambulatory as much as possible.
Ambulatory care is also known as outpatient care, which includes diagnosis, observation, consultation, treatment, intervention, and rehabilitation. Activities that generally don't require long or even short overnight stays at the hospital. The focus on ambulatory care has 2 big benefits. It can be less expensive on our healthcare system, and it's easier on patients and their caregivers.
How so?
Well, let's say you have a chronic disease.
Really?
Just go with it for now. Let's say due to age, disability, or even convenience, you need to have someone drive you to your hospital appointments. But every visit means your caregiver has to take time off work. You have to make sure you can spend time away from work, and it's even worse if you're driving into the city from rural areas.
Okay, so I get that every trip to the hospital is difficult for patients and caregivers, but physically changing the layout of the hospital, that's done what?
I'll let Dr. Hramiak explain that.
In 2013, we opened a 42,000 square foot central outpatient unit. Patients will experience central booking and central registration, and then when they leave, they go to a central area for their follow-up appointments. And it doesn't matter which clinic they're coming to, it's all kind of in a centralized area. The advantage of centering a lot of the ambulatory services at St. Joseph's Healthcare has been that we can sometimes provide a more efficient co-management of patients. We know that many patients have more than one chronic disease. They might have made multiple appointments and multiple trips to the hospital, sometimes different sites, different hospitals. Being a hub of ambulatory activity now allows us to look at who our population is that we serve and see, are there things we can do better? Can we facilitate their care by having co-management, clinics where patients are shared, multiple appointments being dealt with on a single day rather than making multiple trips.
This person-centered care has another benefit that really wasn't a thing before: the ability to recognize and treat related and overlapping chronic diseases. Dr. Hramiak gives one example.
So we know that many patients in cardiac rehab also have diabetes. And we now are providing a integrated service where if you're identified with diabetes while you're attending cardiac rehab, we're going to help you manage your diabetes. And on the flip side, if you come to us and you have diabetes, but we notice in a screening tool that you have depression, or you want to exercise, or you want to stop smoking, those are things that we now can utilize the resources in the cardiac rehab program, and we can help you with those goals.
The changes to the physical building also mean that the nature of treatment is changing, and it's getting better because they're able to, as they say, treat the whole person and not just a specific disease or medical problem.
Medicine traditionally has been based on organ systems. And so if you had a cardiac problem, you went to the cardiology group and you dealt with that problem. And there was less focus on the chronic disease model. And there's been a lot of research and innovation around what does it mean to deal with chronic diseases. It's not a one-time visit, but it's a continuum of care. And that is a very different series of events. And the follow-up is very different. our focus has to be different when it's a chronic disease.
As for the future, Dr. Hramiak says there's an easy path to figure out how St. Joseph's can keep evolving in a way that will continue to best accommodate the population it serves.
Our focus at St. Joseph's Healthcare is to try and look at the patient as an individual with a problem, and then determine what is the way that we can best help them navigate the system. Medicine and hospitals are complicated places, and our patients often are our best guides because they tell us things. So if you listen to your patients, they tell you their problems with navigating and why they're having difficulty. And so I think we as physicians have to look beyond just the disease, but to the person themselves. And I think patient-centered care is very much listening to what the patient tells us and looking at how we can facilitate that. I think St. Joe's is very fortunate because of the combinations that exist within this building that we can help our patients if we listen carefully and say, well, rather than making 2 separate trips, perhaps 1 trip, and I'll talk to that physician. We'll see if we can help because that's really your issue.
You can see videos about the transformation, plus other content about St. Joe's restructuring on the episode 3 page of our website, towardslondon.com.
From easy setup to around-the-clock support, Start.ca is London's friendly internet company. They're committed to providing a better internet and phone experience. How? Friendly local support, exceptional service, and unlimited internet. Isn't it time you loved your internet provider? Visit Start.ca online or call 866-434-5888 to get started.
The brain is just a fascinating structure. We know very little about it. It's hugely complicated. It's one of the great unsolved mysteries. So by combining basic science and thinking about understanding the brain and thinking how that can be applied to disease, we hope to progress treatments in the future using the money from BrainScan.
That's Dr. Lisa Succeeda, Canada Research Chair in Translational Cognitive Neuroscience and Co-Scientific Director of BrainScan at Western University.
The project called BrainScan, it's an immense project, the goal of which is to understand the brain better and then use that understanding to help develop treatments for various different brain diseases. So we have been awarded $66 million from a federal program, which is designed to provide funding for projects that are really meant to take things to the next level, to be transformational.
BrainScan will fund neuroscientists, graduate students, and postdoctoral scholars to radically transform cognitive neuroscience research. The stated focus of every BrainScan supported program is to, quote, make substantial impact on the lives of those burdened with brain disorders, unquote.
Okay, sorry. Let's back up a second here. Cognitive neuroscience.
I know, it sounds like another made-up word, doesn't it?
It does.
So here's Dr. Adrian Owen. He's a member of BrainScan's Executive Committee and Canada Research Excellence Chair in, you guessed it, cognitive neuroscience.
Cognitive neuroscience really emerged out of the fields of psychology and neuroscience. So it's really asking questions about how the brain allows us to plan, think, lay down memories, do all of the amazing things that we're able to do.
The pulsing sound you hear in the background is an MRI, and this particular machine is one of the most powerful imaging devices in the country. It's part of a facility that houses Canada's only collection of high-field and ultra-high-field magnetic resonance systems, the Centre for Functional and Metabolic Mapping, or CFMM.
The director for CFMM is Dr. Ravi Menon. He's also the co-scientific director of BrainScan and Canada Research Chair in Functional and Molecular Imaging. While Dr. Menon's work is in medical imaging, he says that this project has a cross-disciplinary approach that's very unusual.
We have a large team, both based here at the CFMM and the Brain and Mind Institute, London Health Sciences Centre in Clinical Neurological Sciences and Psychiatry, groups like that. In fact, there are 7 faculties in the university that are involved, all the way from the Ivy Business School to Fine Arts and Music. So these people have come together to examine the brain from a variety of different viewpoints. imaging, behavior, molecular, computational neuroscience, and so forth, because the brain is a tough nut to crack, of course, and so we have to be able to bring all these talents to bear.
One of the big mysteries of our brain is cognition, processing and creating things like music and visual art or any critical thought. It also means that when things go wrong, it's often a bit of a gray matter.
Nice one.
Thank you. And understanding how the brain works when it's healthy helps understand cognition, and that's part of why they need to make brain scan as cross-disciplinary as possible.
So we know that brain disorders have a huge impact on Canada. 3.5 million Canadians suffer from brain disorders. So trying to understand how the brain works in health and then what happens when things go wrong in disease is critical if we're going to be able to address these disorders.
A central aspect of many clinical disorders, particularly clinical disorders of the brain, is cognitive deficits in things like memory, planning, attention, thinking ahead, making decisions, these sorts of things. And what we're really interested in is trying to understand what goes wrong in the brain that produces these effects. One of the key things that we're going to be spending the money on is bringing together people here on campus towards the solution of common goals. So we're producing equipment cores. So, for example, an imaging core. We're going to make it easier for anybody here on campus to use machines like the one behind me to do brain imaging. We're going to have people using our EEG equipment. Or we have driving simulators. We have many pieces of equipment that are not used across campus, but generally by individual groups. And one of the plans we have is to make all of that equipment much more widely available.
And remember those artists and musicians and business folks? The Canada First Research Excellence Fund has been set up in such a way that access to that equipment can be made possible, in many cases, for the first time.
So we received $66 million from the Canada First Research Excellence Fund. This is a federal government program that is designed to take Canadian institutions that are already in the top 10 in the world and take them to the very top. There are a number of critical core facilities at this university that will be supported for the next 7 years. So that allows people who have never used these cores to actually come up with interesting questions and come and use these facilities at reduced cost. So that's one huge advantage. We're also going to be recruiting 4 faculty members using some of this funding in areas that we feel we have holes or that we believe we can build world-leading strength. So computational neuroscience is an area where we can build a critical mass. Some of the new modern techniques in optogenetics and genetics in general are also areas where we will hire. And then we have a granting program that is designed to really be transformative. So not have people fund their individual research, but have multidisciplinary teams come together to ask really innovative, transformative questions that typical agencies like Canadian Institutes for Health Research wouldn't or don't fund.
Okay, so the Canada Excellence Research Fund dropped $66 million. Why now? What has changed? What's the urgency here?
Well, there's an expectation that in the next 15 years, the number of people around the world living with dementia will nearly double to about 75 million. And in fact, in 2015, Dr. Margaret Chan, the former Director General of the World Health Organization and a Western University alumna, called it a tidal wave of dementia that we have no plans to cope with. Dr. Schlachta sees this as well.
There is this huge problem that we're about to face, which is we have an aging population, and we know that issues with cognition and in particular Alzheimer's disease and other dementias increases as people age. So this is going to so the problem is we don't have any good solutions yet to that problem, and so I think it's really imperative that we are working on this now to try to develop solutions and treatments and interventions that we can use before this really hits us. We're already seeing it happen, but I think it's only going to get worse over the next 10 or 15 years.
But the elderly and those experiencing dementia are not the only groups that BrainScan is investigating. They're casting a very wide net.
It really is across the gamut. It's across the whole lifespan. So we're looking at babies who are born with hearing deficits. What sort of interventions can we use there? School-age children who are struggling with mathematics, teenagers who have had traumatic brain injury or concussion-related injury, and then older people who are experiencing cognitive decline. So the whole range. And it's, understanding the brain. By developing a better understanding of the basics of how the brain works, we will be able to address all of these. And in particular, how that relates to cognition, I think will help us look with all of these different disorders, not just a single one.
And Dr. Menon explains how imaging is playing a role in developing interventions, particularly alternative interventions that don't involve drugs or expensive healthcare resources.
The interventions can be based on all sorts of things. So we're looking at brain function basically from a newborn all the way to somebody who might be in their 90s. And many of the conditions we look at in terms of, say, dyslexia or dyscalculia, these are things that can actually be remedied in education in the school system. So by using, for example, imaging as a tool to understand the brain basis of these, we can actually look at the therapeutic consequences of these interventions. And they don't involve drugs. They involve different ways of teaching, for example. So these are, as you can imagine, easier to actually impact because you don't have to go to the FDA, you don't have to go to Health Canada, you have to go to the school board.
Dr. Owen has some ideas about where he would like to see this go.
I think what we're really trying to achieve with BrainScan is to tackle many brain disorders simultaneously using the same technique. So where I hope to be in 7 years, at the end of this particular program, is to have really provided solutions to some of the most difficult and challenging brain disorders that we know about, things like traumatic brain disorder, neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. And I think we will make huge headway in understanding those diseases and hopefully developing therapeutic strategies for trying to make some of the patients' lives better. This, of course, will have a knock-on effect internationally. I think Western, through this program, will become even better known for cognitive neurosciences, for understanding the relationship between the brain and how it goes wrong in various clinical populations. And hopefully that will bring even more experts to Western. We're already able to attract international expertise in a variety of fields across the neurosciences. And I think this fund will allow us to be even more competitive in that arena.
And speaking of outcomes, Dr. Menon is cautiously optimistic.
We've always been very careful to say that, we're unlikely to come up with cures for many of these diseases, but the goal of BrainScan is actually to reduce the burden of the disease. And just by doing that, if you can keep people home longer, you can keep people out of long-term care. If you can have a caregiver that's part of the family as opposed to someone you have to pay, these are really important factors that will improve just the condition for patients in Canada.
Dr. Saxida is a little less cautious.
I want to see a cure for one of these diseases, some sort of intervention that we can use to treat, in particular, dementia. That's my research area, and that's something that I'm very concerned about. At the moment, we have really almost no treatments that are effective. We have some symptomatic treatments that can relieve the symptoms to some extent, but we have nothing that can deal with the underlying pathology and the underlying neurobiology of the disease. If we had some sort of treatment that was effective in the context of dementia, I'd be very happy.
We'll put a link to BrainScan's homepage on the episode 3 page of our website.
Computer-assisted and robotic surgery is unquestionably the future of surgery because it is the one way that we can be sure that we eliminate all of the aspects of human frailty from the care that we deliver to our patients.
Does this mean...
Yes. Yes, Adam. The voice that you just heard is that of Dr. Christopher Schlachta. He's a professor at Western University's Schulich School of Medicine and Dentistry and also works at London Health Sciences Centre, where he's the medical director of CSTAR, which stands for... Adam, do you want to say it?
Nah, you go ahead.
Okay. CSTAR stands for Canadian Surgical Technologies and Advanced Robotics, and Dr. Schlachta is there for one reason and one reason alone.
I've always been interested in, computers and machines and so on. And what system is more complex than the human body right now? So you look around our world right now and you see we live in the information age. Everything that we do right now is computer technology. So computers fly our spaceships, they fly our airplanes, they control our nuclear power plants. And yet when it comes to caring for the most important thing that we have, which is ourselves, why wouldn't we also incorporate that technology as well? Why wouldn't we do everything we could to eliminate error and increase the precision of what we do, not just in the delivery of healthcare, but actually in the operating room? So I'm in London right now because of CSTAR. I had already engaged myself in this whole career that was focused on surgical technology and minimally invasive surgery. It was clear to me that the next step in the evolution of minimally invasive surgery was robotics and computer-assisted surgery. And the only place in the country that I would consider pursuing that was at CSTAR.
Dr. Schlachta said that surgery and robotics are a natural fit for each other. And for him, it meant that the whole reason he became a surgeon is enhanced by robotics.
So I chose surgery as a specialty because if my interest is the complexity of the human body, then surgery is the way to be most connected with that. It's an opportunity to actually do things that have an immediate impact on patients. You operate on somebody, you cure them, or you make them better right away. They walk out of hospital in same day, 1 or 2 days, but you see immediate impact of the care that you provide.
Dr. Schlachta sees even more benefits coming from robots performing surgeries as technology improves. I mean, to the point where he sees surgeons completely being replaced by robots.
Another job lost to those pesky another task enhanced by the ancestors of our future robot overlords.
Not exactly. There's still a lot for us humans to do. Dr. Schlachta is working on a process that combines surgery with virtual reality technology so that doctors can perform a surgery by practicing on a virtual person.
Well, I think it's an absolute no-brainer that someday all surgery is going to be computer-assisted robotic surgery. We discover that somebody has an illness or a condition that is amenable to surgery. We bring them in to hospital or to whatever facility where they will have a body scan. Based on that body scan, we will produce a perfect reproduction in a virtual reality world of their system. We will then have our surgeon, technician, practice operating on that virtual reality reproduction, doing their surgery effectively until they get it perfect, debugging it, almost like playing a computer game. So you start the operation, you make a mistake, you back up, you correct the mistake, and you keep going until you now have a perfect operation from beginning to end that has been debugged. You record that operation, and the next day you bring that patient into hospital where you then put that recording into the robot, and the robot now carries out that perfectly flawless operation without any opportunity for error.
Robotic surgery is actually being used today at both London hospitals for everything from open heart surgery to the aforementioned prostate removal, and recovery times have dropped from as long as several months to, in some cases, just a few days. Dr. Schlachta sees that improving, and he keeps doing what he's doing for one reason.
At the end of the day, we are constantly striving for ways to improve the quality of care that we provide. And it's through innovation that we can come up with the means of getting patients back to normal, getting them back home again to their families, to their jobs. So the future of surgery is without a doubt going to be computer-assisted and robotic surgery, because that is going to be our opportunity to remove all human frailty and error from the equation.
We'll put a link to CSTAR's website on the episode 3 page, and we'll post some video stories of people in London who have benefited from robotic surgery. Also, if you have any thoughts about this story or the series in general, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and using plain old email at info@towardslondon.com. Shobit and I get and read every email, and we'll be sure to respond.
Our sincere thanks goes out to Dr. Irene Hramiak and the team at St. Joseph's Healthcare Communications, including Dahlia Reich and Amanda Jackman.
We'd also like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Adrian Owen, Dr. Lisa Saxida, and Dr. Ravi Menon at BrainsCan. Mayor Matt Brown and Ashton Pattis help us secure the interviews there, and Jeff Renault helped us juggle 5 very busy schedules. Plus, a quick shout out to Keith Marnock at Western University Communications for his help.
Finally, the Matt Brown at London Health Sciences Foundation helped us with the interview with Dr. Schlachta. Thanks to both Matt and Dr. Schlachta as well.
And a special thank you to our super benevolent future robot overlords. Plus, thanks as always to you as well for listening and subscribing. If you get a chance, please do rate and review us on iTunes. It really helps. Until next time, I'm Adam Kaplan.
And I'm Shobhita Sharma. See you next time.
This has been a Webisodes podcast.